There's nothing new, original, extraordinary about all of that, with one exception. The choice of a person who is not given a top government job to do this, to have this sort of friend. I don't know how to describe what you would call him. I know it's called the Department of Government Efficiency, but I don't believe there is such a, they made that up. There was no existing, and I don't even think they've gone through some bureaucratic, there is a way to add a person to the cabinet. You could have we haven't always had an EPA. We haven't always had a whole bunch of agencies. Over time, if something is needed, you could do that. You could have developed a Department of Government Efficiency long ago if you wanted that. But my understanding, it doesn't exist. It's just a made-up thing. So that is unusual that a person who's a friend is given such an important position. And then it's also unusual that friend is the largest contributor of money to a political operation, I believe, in American history. If I have understood correctly, it's somewhere around $300 million, one way or another, through one channel or another, that he contributed to Mr. Trump's effort this last time.
Oh, wow.
Huge amounts of money. And it's also a person who is contributing. I know right now that on Tuesday is an election in Wisconsin. They elect their Supreme Court judges. So there's an election for a Supreme Court judge. And if I understand the political, it's a 50-50 split on the Supreme Court, so that this election will kind of tilt the balance which way that court goes. And the left and right, Wisconsin is a state of importance because it's not either in one camp or the other. It's half-half. He is giving money, I believe $100, to every voter who signs a petition that he has, and he has circulating. Now, obviously, the idea is, if I can get this person to sign the petition for $100, I'm going to let them know I want their vote. You can't literally give people money for a vote. I believe that's a crime in most states. You can't do that. Of course, that's a crime because we used to do that in this country. And then there was an outrage and it stopped. So he's skirting that law to do this. A person who gives money to buy voters, whether it was in the presidential election or in Wisconsin, or in who knows how many other. I haven't done the work, and I'm not aware of anybody who's asked the question, to whom else has he given money? We do know that he went to Germany and spoke there before their last election about how the people should vote for the extreme right-wing party. I don't know if you're familiar with that. The party is called the Alternative für Deutschland, AfD. It got about 20-something% of the vote, did very well in the last election. He visited Germany and said, this is the only party that can save Germany. An extraordinary act. In case your audience is not aware, there are 4 or 5 other parties in Germany. It's a multi-party society. All the other parties, all 5 of them, have vowed never to work with, never to have a coalition with that Alternative, because they are thought of as the inheritors of the Nazi history. the leading advisor to the President of the United States officially goes and supports the extreme. You want to know why the Germans are upset with the United States? Before you get to the tariff on BMWs and Mercedes, which is coming, and that's terrible for the Germans. Their exports of cars to the United States are very important for the German economy, so you can bet they are scrambling now, really. But even before that, this kind of interference in their internal politics, holy mackerel. And I don't know if he gave money. I don't know if it's known, and I don't know how much it might be, but given what he's done everywhere else, I wouldn't be surprised. And since his wealth is listed, last I saw, at around $400 billion, giving 10, 20, or 100, or 200, or $300 million is immaterial to him. It's like you're giving me a quarter from my next political race. Thank you very much, but it's a quarter. That's unique, that a huge money donor becomes a kind of an adjunct to the president without being part of the administration the way others are. So, for example, he doesn't have to go before the Senate to be approved. They get to have him there. It might have been brought out by Senate research, which they're supposed to do, what he has done in his life, and that might have made it much more difficult for Mr. Trump to give him the power he has. You know, he comes from South Africa. Ooh, that might be an issue. What did he do there, given the horrors of that society and its history? Anyway, all of that was avoided by this maneuver. Okay, that's interesting, that's unusual. Other than that, everything is the same. And let me go through a couple with you. Every employer that I've ever studied, or every employer that I've ever worked for, has on occasion fired people. Sometimes a few, sometimes a lot. And one of the standard behaviors of employers when they fire you is not to tell you the truth. And there are many reasons for that. It's not about honesty in the normal sense of it. It's because, I'll give you an example. If I were to tell if I were an employer and I needed to fire people and say the reason is my business is not doing so well, I can't sell as many widgets, and so I can't afford to hire people if I can't sell what they help me produce, I fire them. But if I tell them, look, and they ask me, at the moment I'm saying, don't come back Monday, they say to me, why? Is my work no good? I could say that, but that's hurtful and that's not true. Nothing to do with their work. It's because I can't sell the output. Nothing to do with you. I can't tell them that because that's going to make everyone I didn't fire frightened. And when they're frightened, you know what they're going to do? Look for another job. And if a good one comes along, they're not waiting for me to fire them if they find a good job. Better to go where I know I can get a job than to wait for the axe to fall, right? So I don't want that. I don't want anxiety among my workers. I don't want to lose them before. It's when I have to, I want to be able to fire you. I don't want you to make that decision because that's a burden on me. So all employers, either themselves, if they have a brain, or they hire a consultant to give them the line of blah, blah, to tell a worker who's fired, and you choose carefully what to say so that other people aren't provoked into leaving. Number one. Number two, if you're a public-facing enterprise, in other words, you deal with the larger public, then you got to worry about how they hear the news, right? I don't want to buy from a loser. So you got to be careful. probably pay you to do a little extra advertising to make yourself look good, so that music drowns out the fire. Long story short, one of the things you say is that you are only working to remove the inefficiency that dogs your business. And that as soon as these people are fired, the efficiency problem will be solved. Which means if you didn't lose your job, don't worry, whatever it is made us do it is done. You're the lucky one, you're saved, the other ones are. Now, for this to work, there has to be no countervailing evidence. But in Mr. Musk's case, partly because I don't think they're very good at what they do, they didn't take care of that. Here again is that element of flying by the seat of your pants, the element of chaos, the element of fast and loose. Let me give you some examples. The efficiency story is only, of course, about federal employees, because who's being fired are federal employees. Now, let's take a look at that together. Right? I'm an economist. I'm supposed to know these things. So I did a little research, and here's what I found. There are about 2.5 million civilian employees of the federal government. Another 2.5 million are the military, but I'm going to put them aside. Civilian employees, the people who staff all the agencies, the IRS, the EPA, the AID, all those that we've been reading about. 2.5 million. I then went back to 1960s, and I said, what was the number of federal employees in the 1960s? Answer, about 2.5 million. Whoa, wait a minute then. In the 1960s, we had 2.5 million civilian employees, give or take. And in 2025, we had 2.5 million. The population in the United States has grown 150 million people between the 60s and now.
I am surprised to hear this.
Yeah. Which means under the normal way efficiency is used in economics, the same number of federal employees that serviced 150 million fewer people in the 1960s is now servicing them. That's an incredible increase in efficiency. You moron. What do? You can't justify this on grounds of efficiency. It's ridiculous. But it gets better. I then took the next step. How many people work for state governments, all 50 of them? 5 million civilian employees. And now the third level of government in the United States, local, cities, towns, 15 million. So if you want to bring efficiency to government work, would you focus on the federal 2.5 million or the state and local 20 million? You focus on the federal because he can. He can't do it to the state people. They're employed by the governor and the state, and ditto for the local. So he's only going off after them because he can. Not because it's efficient. It isn't efficient. First of all, they are efficient. And second of all, efficiency would require you to do something about state and local government about which they are doing exactly nothing. Not even trying. Partly because they would get a pushback. First of all, from every democratically governed city and state, which would mean the vast majority of cities are governed by Democrats, not by Republicans. It can't. And he would run political. That's all this is. It's a show. Look at the imagery. This is the best part for me. Because it's a level of incompetence that I gasp at. Unless I'm missing something, I made mistakes too. On the stage, covered by 1 million cameras, is a prancing Elon Musk gripping a chainsaw. I don't know if you caught that picture, all over the country. He was on, I don't know what the occasion was, but he's up on a platform, a speaker's platform, in his signature t-shirt and baseball cap, holding a chainsaw. And the point was, I'm taking a chainsaw to the waist in the federal workforce. So Americans saw the richest man on earth taking a chainsaw to rip the jobs away from tens of thousands of working people. If a student portrayed such a story in a class on public relations, I'd say, I'm not just going to give you an F. I'm throwing you out of the class, because that level of misunderstanding of what this is about is beyond repair. I mean, that could occur to you and that you would do it without nobody or yourself introducing the question, maybe that's not the image you want. That image will haunt the Republicans. If I were a Democratic advisor, which I have been in my life, I would say, just take this. The billionaire is firing the workers. But what? Also, to fire 10,000 at a time, which he's doing in the IRS, he did that. In AID, he did that. That's not efficiency, if you're going to make efficiency, means you have to study the situation, look really carefully at what everybody is doing, and then figure out better ways of doing wholesale. No efficiency expert would tell you to do that. That's dumb. That's chaos. The mere chaos recovery will undo the efficiency you get. Now, let's suppose you get 10% more efficiency. You're going to get 10% loss from the upset of all the workers who are not, and then even crazier, they undo it. They didn't take the legal steps to enable them to do it. So it turns out they violated half a dozen laws. So the people who get fired go into court, get a lawyer, and that's now running through 57 different courts. And some of these judges are siding with the workers, which is likely going to happen. That's going to hold it all up, which means you've alienated that worker. You've made that worker look for another job. Meanwhile, you may have to give that worker his job back and his salary back and possibly pay a penalty. Who does things like that? What? This is for show. It's like having ICE pick up, a Turkish professor who teaches oceanography at Dipsy Doodle University and ship her out of here. What for? Well, it scares people. It is demonstrable. It is dramatic. It gets you on the news. Otherwise, we're back to where we were before. What is going on here? Well, when there's a catastrophe at your house and everybody's fleeing, you don't behave the normal way you do. You say things, you throw things, you grab hold of things in a way you wouldn't normally do, and we understand why, because you're a bit of a panic here, and you're desperate to get out. And that, for me, is another symptom of a declining empire. As important in its way as losing the war in Afghanistan or turning on your erstwhile enemies. If you learn how to swim, or if you're instructed in how to be a swimming lifeguard, you're told that one of the things you have to be careful about is that a person drowning or losing control in the water, if you go to help them, they will grab onto you and actually pull you down with them, not intending you harm, but they are desperate because their lungs are filling up with water. So you've got to approach them very carefully, or else it'll be two people drowning, not just the other person. That's the sense I want to convey here. That we are seeing people behave. Canada is an ally, has always been. Mexico, basically also. Subordinate allies. Why would you turn on them? Why would you insult them? Call the president of the prime minister of their country governor, as if he were the head of a state. Say such a thing. Why are you telling the Greenland, the people of Denmark, I'm going to take it. I want it. I'm going to take it. What would you do? What is that? That's the behavior of a drowning person who grabs hold of your swimming trunks because it's just trying to save him. You don't mean to pull off your pants. It's just the way it works. That's a little bit of what I'm thinking. And I can tell you that more and more of the world is looking at the United States now. And I've not seen this before in my lifetime here. You know, born in Ohio, lived and worked here all my life. The United States is a rogue country. The United States is the country to which the rest of the world looks, what the hell is going on there? You know how the United States tried to pay to portray the head of North Korea, you know, a country nobody knows anything about, right? He's crazy. He's a little fat man, and he's bizarre. That's how the world is looking at Mr. Trump and the United States. In that moment, Donald Trump says, I'm going to take back the Panama Canal. I'm going to take Greenland away from Denmark. I'm going to take Canada away from the Canadian. What? Here's a wonderful Hegelian irony. Coming out of World War II, a thinker of that time who was very important, named George Kennan, I believe he's credited with the phrase that American foreign policy has now to be focused on, and that came the key word, containment. And the containment had to do with the Soviet Union. You had to contain this communism. Because after World War II, now there was that cordon of countries of Eastern Europe, the Warsaw Pact, Poland in the north to Bulgaria in the south, a buffer zone of sorts before you got to Russia proper. So it had spread because those were all communist things. And so we had to contain. That's why there's the ring of bases. If you ever look at American foreign military bases, they're literally a ring around Russia. Russia's the largest country by geography in the world. And so it's quite a ring you have to put. We were going to contain Russia. And the policy was to line everybody else into this containment. NATO was conceived as a mechanism of containment. It was the way the United States would link and mobilize Europe, or at least Western Europe, to contain Russia. The irony is the project to contain has become its opposite. It's we who are becoming isolated. We who are becoming contained. Not by a ring of bases, although that may come at this point, but by a ring of alliances and coalitions for which the United States is the enemy. Recent votes in the United Nations, if you take a look, it's more and more isolated. It's the United States, Israel, and the Tobago Islands. That's more or less how it goes. Right? We're alone. Coalition of the willing. It's a joke. There was no coalition. On paper, yes. So it was 200,000 American troops in Southeast Asia and 11 French paratroopers. And 12 British. It's silly. But the silliness now is becoming almost perverse. The Europeans feel they've been turned on, and they are The United States is alone. It's even turned on its neighbors. The heads of Mexico, Scheinbaum, and the head of Canada, the banker, Carney, or whatever his name is, they're making incredible statements. The world has changed. Our friendship is over. Our relationship... Okay, yes, it's just words at this point. But we've not seen those words, not in 75 years. Everything, words are not zero. It's not that they don't mean anything. They're very powerful institutions. You ever study Freud and psychology, you know the words you use are very powerful shapers of you as well as everybody around you. So I would argue the United States is becoming more and more isolated. And I think the Elon Musk phenomena makes it worse. This is an easy person to dislike, an easy person to feel alien from. And look at what's happening to his automobiles. And he too admits it, he's paying now a spectacular price for what he's doing. There's a demonstration tomorrow in the headquarters of Tesla here in New York City. And I expect there'll be hundreds, if not thousands, of people there at the Tesla, against Mr. Musk as a representation of what's going on. And certainly people are not buying his cars. His dealerships announced that. The Chinese announced, I don't know if you're aware, 2 days ago, the Chinese announced that the best-selling electric cars in China are no longer Teslas. Their own company, BYD, which stands, if I'm correctly informed, BYD is the name of the corporation, stands for Build Your Dream, English. They are the world's biggest producer now of electric cars and trucks. And they're the biggest seller in China. They surpassed Tesla by a lot. First year that they did that. Tesla's not selling in Europe. It's a catastrophe for him in Europe. He's associated with Mr. Trump. And that's the worst advertising imaginable in the world right now. And that too is a symptom. The joke about the end of the Roman Empire is the Emperor Nero on a balcony playing the violin, which he was good at. Now, he's not troubled by Rome, it was said, is burning. He's fiddling. Not a bad image. Mr. Trump is fiddling. Rome is burning. You can't, after a while, get too hot. Strings will pop, and your violin won't sound so good. It's a serious, I'm trying to have a little humor in it, but it is, in fact, a very serious situation. And there is not the admission, there's not the recognition. I will tell you that more and more people are asking me to talk because they don't agree with me, but they kind of feel as though they ought to hear it.
You're a symptom of the decline of the American empire.
Absolutely. I'd have to list myself among them. It's not so much me, although maybe that's true too. What I was about to say is, interest in what I have to say is a symptom. It's not that I've been saying things that are all that different from what I said 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But now, the number of people, wow, I can't quite get over it. Doing a lot of work in India right now because of the interest. Podcasters, and radio and TV. India's in a big country, bigger than China, by the way. It just changed a little bit. They just went ahead of the population by a little. But India is an absolutely important country. Then I'm overwhelmed by how well what I say is known there, how many different outlets are approaching me. It's flattering, I don't deny it for a minute. But I think there's a sense of something very big shifting in the world, at all levels of society, different stories to account for it, different ways of interpreting it, understood. But it's still important that it's happening in different ways, but it's all happening at the same time, and that somehow the relationship between the United States and its leaders and everything else in the world is a key part of almost every story.
I'm taken by this image of the drowning child pulling down somebody's trunks. Or
shirt. I didn't mean to pick on the trunks.
Trunks makes it funnier, though.
Yeah.
But